there, it's Anna again. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm sitting out here in the middle of the berry patch where I've got a bench set up and taking a few quiet minutes to write in my journal because this is a really important part of my day. It's a way that I stay on top of that feeling of overwhelm that I think is probably not foreign to most of us who have chosen a homesteading lifestyle. I think for a lot of folks, we wait so long to get our hands on a piece of property, a place to call home that's really ours, where we can do all of the from scratch, back to the earth things that we dream of. And then we want to do it all at once. And even if you're really careful about trying to not take on too much, that feeling of overwhelm can just sneak up on you. It's so easy to all of a sudden feel like your to-do list is longer than any human could possibly catch up with. It's easy to, feel like you're drowning sometimes. And so over the last few years, I found a few survival tips that I think are, for me, they're helpful for keeping that sense of overwhelm at bay and trying to prevent that. And I thought maybe we'd just talk about that for a minute today, just some ideas that I have for trying to keep that sense of overwhelm under control. And if you have ideas as well, let's make this a conversation. I would love to hear your ideas and strategies in the comments below. Hey baby girl. Good girl, Nels. You still smell like skunk. This girl got skunked 3 times in the last 3 days. Yeah, I know. Sometimes we gotta learn the hard way, right? Well, the first thing that I think is really helpful if you're feeling extremely overwhelmed, for me, the first step that I do is sit down with a notebook. It does not have to be your pretty notebook. It does not have to be your awesome journal pen. You grab, blank paper, whatever you've got at hand that you can write on that's got a lot of room on it because there's a lot in your mind. Grab whatever you've got for a writing utensil that's not going to drive you crazy and start writing. Write down every single thing in your mind that you've got to do, whether it's taking up space because you work from home, you run a blog, or you've got an essential oil business, or whatever this is. I think a lot of people who watch me, I know, are homesteading moms who also are finding a way to make a living from home. So whatever those things are that are in the back of your mind with work, with the homestead, with life, just, hey, I've got corn that I've got to get cut off the cob and freeze it, or I've got so much kale, and if I don't get that in the freezer or can it, then the slugs are going to get it. And there's this sense of urgency sometimes that is really, it keeps us running, when sometimes taking a moment to pause and just write it all down is really helpful. So step 1, write down every single thing that's floating around in your mind that you've got to do. Don't worry about categorizing it right now. Don't worry if it all goes together and makes sense. Meal planning, harvesting, canning, whatever these things are, write it all down. And then, go through and prioritize. Grab yourself a red pen and, circle those things that are just absolute must-do things. And then, start to think about what could get cut from this list. Is it worth your sanity and your peace of mind to not worry about getting the kale in the freezer or on your pantry shelves in cans and jars this year? How much money is that going to save you? How much food does that represent for your family? As you start to critically look at that list, sometimes it suddenly becomes clear, wow, my sense of peace is worth more to me than 67 cents worth of kale, or whatever that is. So first step, do a brain dump. And then the next thing is you're looking through that list, what are some things that can just get eliminated? And I don't mean just simple tasks like canning the kale. Are there things that are taking up space in your life, that are filling your schedule and taking your energy and your mental space and thought processes, that don't belong there, that aren't meeting your goals as a homesteader and as a human? Is it, for a while we raised pigs. that didn't end up being a long-term part of the homesteading plan. That was something to let go. Lord knows I've tried a lot of things that I've let go. Quail were another one of those. And it is easy to get attached to wanting to make a success of everything that you try. And I'm just gonna, plain talk here. For those of you that are married, is there something that you're doing because your spouse feels like this is important to your homesteading plans, but the burden of that is falling on you? Did you start raising goats because your spouse feels like having your own milk is really important, but you're the one doing the bulk of that? And I'm not trying to get you into a marital argument or anything here, but sometimes sitting down and really having a conversation with your homesteading partners can help you work through some things that the burden of that might be falling on you, that you're carrying that burden physically, emotionally, mentally. But this isn't a priority. It's something that you might let go, and you're doing it for others. If that's the case, talk about it. Can you eliminate that? What are you doing for yourself, for your family, for others, and why? What can you nix from the list, at least for now? Doesn't have to be forever. Along those same lines, what are things on your list that you're carrying that maybe you can share? Are your kids starting to get older and they can take on a few extra chores? Maybe you're raising out baby turkeys. We have like 14 baby turkeys right now, and I realized today that I've been the one, even though my kids were the ones who have been wanting to raise out turkey chicks and then sell them in the fall, and have the joy and the project of doing this. I haven't been involving them as much in taking on the responsibility of food and water and clean shavings and taking care of these turkey poults, because it's easier for me to just do it myself. It's easier today for me to do it myself. It's not easier in the long term. Is that something that I can share with my kids and say, hey, here's a chart on the wall. I want you to check on the turkey poults 3 times a day. Make sure they've got clean food and water and shavings. Make that part of your kids' chores. Are there things that you can share and divide up more equitably among your homesteading partners, whether that's your family or other people that you're doing life with? Are there tasks that you can share? Another thought process is thinking through, how long is this crunch season going to last? Are you in a hustle season? And is that okay? I know that for me, and I think for a lot of homesteaders, there are a couple of really intense seasons on the homestead. One of those is when all of the babies are being born and hatching. Springtime, suddenly you've got so many more mouths to feed and cages to keep clean and mamas to take care of. And it's a busy, busy season, hatching season, birthing season. Also, this happens to coincide for the most part with planting season, which is another really intense season. Maybe you don't even have a lot of animals on your homestead, but most of your property is gardens. That's a crunch season. That's a really busy time. Harvesting, canning, freezing, dehydrating, that's another crunch time. For me, that's the second busiest time in my homesteading year. Is I've had a lull after the planting and all of the babies and hatching season. I'm starting to enjoy summer, and all of a sudden there's, green beans coming out of my ears and peaches to can and onions to dehydrate, and I want to put as much food as I've grown that I possibly can on my shelves in jars, and I want to put it in my freezer and fill every inch of my freezer space, because I'm paying for electricity to keep it cold, so why shouldn't I use every inch of freezer space? And I've grown that food, so let's get that put away for winter. There's a sense of urgency, and to some extent maybe that's okay. But for me, one tactic that helps to keep the sense of drowning and overwhelm at bay is to remind myself, actually just even get out a calendar and say, you know what? Canning season is really done for the most part for me, for the things that I grow here in Maine, Zone 5A. I'm pretty well done with canning season by, about the middle toward the end of September. That season is coming to an end. I'm going to get a breather after that. And the other half of this part of keeping overwhelm at bay is, as you look at that and you think, okay, I'm going to have some breathing room after this, don't fill the breathing space. Give yourself that breathing space. Have mercy with yourself. Recognize that right now, what you're doing isn't sustainable. This is crunch time. It's hustle time. And that might be okay for 6 weeks or 3 weeks or, however long this season lasts. Don't live that way forever. Don't plan to live that way forever. Plan to give yourself space. And so even write it on the calendar, write it in your journal. You're not going to fill that space with extra things that you're biting off, that you're going to have to chew and that you're taking on. Plan to have some breathing room after the hustle time. For me, just knowing that there's breathing space on the other side is really helpful with keeping me in go, 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 fight, fight, fight mode, as opposed to, oh my gosh, there's no other side to this, I am drowning mode. And that's not a way to live. That's not how any of us want to live. We're out here in the country raising animals and growing things to have a sense of peace and sustainability. Hustling isn't sustainable for the long haul. Give yourself some peace and breathing space. And then the last part of that is giving yourself a quiet time within each day, even if you're in the middle of hustle season, even if it's only 10 minutes. It's why I'm out here sitting on this bench, and I know I've been talking at you for 12 minutes, but I'm out here because having a quiet daily check-in with myself is so necessary to keeping it, to sustaining a feeling of being, I don't want to say in control, because to some extent, how much are we in control of our lives? But of feeling like this is a ship that I'm steering, and I'm steering it well, and I'm at peace within this homesteading life that I'm creating, and I am not at the mercy of the kale and the green beans and the turkey poults and the urgency of this season. I'm not at the mercy of that. This is something that I've chosen, and I've chosen it for a reason, and I can manage that, and I can live with a sense of peace within that. And for me, having a quiet check-in time with myself each day. It's a little late today. It's about 11 o'clock. Usually I do this the very first thing in the morning, actually before I get dressed, before I even make coffee. I remind myself my goals of the day and do a check-in. How am I feeling? Is this working? Do I need to make changes? What are my priorities today? I try to not prioritize more than 3 major things in a day. Having a long, long to-do list of must-dos is really stressful. And I find that doing a check-in time with a journal and writing it down, for me, is a huge part of keeping that sense of overwhelm at bay. I have tried on a lot of different journals over the years, from blank notebooks to ones with various prompts, gratitude journals. All of them have, different things to commend them. And I think it's a lot about finding what works for you. For me, I am absolutely, this is a journal called Notes to Self that I got from Intelligent Change. And y'all, it's a $30 journal. This is the first time in my life I have spent $30 on something to write in. And you know what? It is worth every penny and more, because it clicks with me and the way I think. I'm not an affiliate. I'm not trying to plug this. I'm not trying to get you to spend $30 you don't have on a journal. But I will say, for me, this needs to never go out of print, and I'll probably always keep a spare one on hand, because the prompts in it are simple. It fits into a very small amount of time in my day and helps me to focus that time and really make use of using that time to help keep myself focused, to maintain my sense of self and purpose, and make sure that I'm not just spinning my wheels and getting overwhelmed in this beautiful, peaceful life that is homesteading life. All right, I've talked for a really long time. I hope that this is a little bit helpful. I think sometimes it's easy to feel a need to pretend that we've got it all, that we are super moms, super homesteaders, and that we can do all these different things, make it look good, and that it's all this beautiful, simple, back to earth life, when sometimes the simple life just, it's been said before, but isn't so simple. And finding a way to maintain peace within that beautiful cacophony is really important, I think, especially as moms who don't want our kids to get raised with a sense of growing up in a whirlwind. I want my kids to be raised with a sense of peace and beauty, and keeping myself from feeling overwhelmed is a really important part of that, I think. So anyway, just something I was thinking about this morning as I was sitting out here on this gorgeous June day with more things on my to-do list than I can do, and that's okay. We'll prioritize and we'll do the things that really count. All right, I am thinking of y'all, and thanks for joining me on this beautiful journey. We'll see you tomorrow.